So I'm backtesting last week. So what do I see? I start on the Monday. I see overall PA is bearish, breakdown after breakdown. So the overall bias is bearish. So what happened? This was the Friday. Sunday opened, it went up, didn't take out this high, and then just sold off. So what do I see now? Then the previous day low is my ultimate target. If I go to the 15 minutes, when London opened, nothing really happened. This was here. It took out Asia low here. Oh no, actually Asia low is already printed here. Here it took out Asia low, but there was hardly any response. So not really. Let's go to the 5 minutes. There was hardly any response. So actually it just chopped, broke down. So for me this was the confirmation that price was bearish until we were supposed to get the previous day low, or actually the last week Friday's low to be taken. Could be interesting to see that you have manipulation here, or at least consolidation here, manipulation, but there was no reclaim. There was a reclaim of the low, but there was no continuation. So this could have been a potential setup, but it failed. Same here, took out this low, but there was hardly any reaction. And I think on the 1 minute there were also not really levels to be trading off. No, look, there's hardly any levels. So this was just waiting. And what you can see here is that getting closer to US Open, there was a lot of generated liquidity moving to the upside. It went into the hourly level, dropped all the way down, took out London low. It just did not take out previous day low. Then it printed a breaker. There was not really a gap to trade off. Maybe this one, but this was too tiny. And I don't go then to the 30 seconds, especially not after US Open, which happened here. Breaker, retest of the change in the state, support, or at least tapped again, and then just went up to this earlier high printed before, or actually just after US high. So this is a 2-hour trade, very nice, very quick, but then it's also important to get out because it's counter trend, and you should not hold this counter trend, especially seeing the volatility. At least I wouldn't do it, because previous day low is still target, since it just took one tick off to take out the previous day low. Overall good setup, not ideal, but as you can see from the checkbox, we did have a sweep of London low. There was a big SMT with ES, because the London low did not get taken for ES. There was a clear draw on liquidity, both this high in an hourly fair value gap, breaker change in the state, and it was within macro, because this was 10 past 10. Actually the breaker was still within 10 past 10. So overall good setup. I would rate this with an A. Then directly after, the following situation occurred. So we had this one trade, price dropped, bounced a little bit, and then took out the previous day low. Now on a higher time frame, we're still in high time frame SMT area, because this was still the London low that was already tagged here, but it isn't for ES yet. And here there's a tiny 15-minute gap that was not fully, how do you call this? Not manipulated, mitigated 50%, but fully pierced. And now, but that's the only tricky thing, is because it's such a fast move, the question is, which time frame do you use for entry? So I was looking at the 1 minute and my eye immediately caught this gap, but technically there's another gap here and there's another gap here. So if I would be consistent, I would have to take them all. And when you get such a vast move, it's almost a manipulative move into this Friday low, Then you also want to be able to get into the move quick to make sure that that's a V reversal. So I looked into the 30 seconds and I saw that there was a small gap here and it coincided with another gap here. And then here you had some tiny bit of consolidation, and the nice thing is this is exactly that 1 minute gap. So it formed here, it tagged it once, and then it pierced completely through in one candle. So that's a good sign. I trade the retest. So on the higher time frame we have the sweep of the previous day low. We're in a 15-minute fair value gap, so that tags the FVG. There is still an SMT. We do not have a clear draw on liquidity. So we could say, hey, this is the draw on liquidity, but we're trading counter trend. So the ideal is what you get out is a golden fib retracement, which it did to the tick. But I think the best you can get out of it is a 50% move, so the EQ of this move, or slightly corrected to earlier wicks. So this would be the first TP, and if you're very lucky you can get this TP just above the golden fib retrace. Price breaks through, you enter on the retest, stop below the wick. I think I took it on a 1 minute wick, so you could actually take it here or here, because this was the 1 minute wick, and then trade it to this TP. And this is already good for a 2.2. If you would trade it up to the TP, then you have a 2.8, which is a ridiculous good trade because it's also very, very quick. So entry is at 10 to 11 precisely within macro, and exit is 3.5 minutes later. So this is a very quick, very aggressive trade. There's not much time to do it, but you get rewarded for it very, very quickly. So because it's counter trend, don't be too greedy, especially also see in the price action after. But overall a good. And another setup on Monday. This was on ES in the afternoon session for the US. So what happened? We had the quite volatile moves on NQ and ES mostly. Let's see, NQ took out this low, which was previous day low, but ES didn't get anywhere close. Price started chopping, and then in this strong move, ES took out the current low for the US in the AM session. So it swept this low and it bounced immediately. So it created an SMT. It did not take out any previous session or previous day. So this is not an A plus or A setup. I would consider this a B. But the price action that happened afterwards was really, really clean. So first, let's also just respect the fact that there's a lot of generated liquidity here and here. So this is actually a very good draw on liquidity. So in one candle it took out all this liquidity. It did not do for NQ, so in that sense this last move was necessary to take out this liquidity, but it already did for ES. So that's something to take into account. There could have been a potential trade in here, but not very clear on the 1 minute. Let's see if it was here. No, I would have to break my rules to take that. Change in the state, yeah, this is just searching for it. So this is too much of a low time frame price action, but still the low resistance liquidity run was a fact. The price action after was quite clean. So what happened? It took out this low, it bounced, it did not create a very clear gap. It did, but a very small one. It chopped, it retested the earlier low that created the breaker, and we have a change in the state. And I think this was also a change in the state on the 2 minutes. It broke the change in the state and the breaker on both NQ and ES, but because it took out that AM session low for London, New York, this was actually a better trade to take. So then what you want to see, if there are any bullish gaps, you want to see them hold. So for NQ it did not even take that low or take that gap. let's take it out. And then for ES it did, and it held, so it mitigated the gap, bounced up, and then this was actually the change in the state, or the bullish breaker was a good entry to take. If you want to go really precise, then you actually have a teeny tiny S&T here, because it did take out the low. It did not get the FVG on NQ, but it did get the FVG on ES, so then it starts running up. So what would be like the logical TP to take? I would say, because this is still a counter trend trade, the TP, this earlier high, is a logical level, but we need to take into account, please mind you, of these levels as well, so they could be taken out as well. But if you go counter trend and taking into account this is not the best setup, you want to go enter on the bullish breaker or enter on the change in the state and target that initial TP. So if you would enter on the change in the state, it would give you 1.7. If you would enter on the bullish breaker, it would give you 1.4. You could consider leaving runners, because maybe it would get close to this high, which it did. So the maximum you could squeeze out is 2.3. But I think, seeing the circumstances and the choppiness of price, and taking into account it's a PM trade, you should not be greedy, definitely. So we have a sweep, albeit not the best. We do have an S&T. We do not have a clear drawn liquidity. I mean, it's not like a magnet. Okay, this would be a sensible level, but we do not know if we actually get there. We did have a breaker change in the state. The price action was actually quite clean on the lower time frame. And we, I think, participated also in macro. So the entry here would be 5 past 1 and 8 past 1. So actually it's all 5 past 1. So that's actually good. I think overall rating is a B, but it played out really nicely.